From one of the co-creators of the beloved Dead Space series, Callisto Protocol arrived with the ambition to not only succeed where Dead Space failed, but also claim itself as being one of the scariest games in the genre and the setting. A quick look at reviews will quickly give you a very mixed reaction. So what went wrong and what went right? This is my review for the Callisto Protocol. When it comes to the story, Callisto Protocol is a fairly cliche experience. Not to say it's a bad story, just that it's nothing too new or unexpected. What I will say is the voice acting is top tier. Having Josh Duhamel for the voice of Jacob was an incredibly good choice. The story had its moments where I was actively engaged, but overall, it wasn't very remarkable at all. Some relationships didn't make sense, they didn't adhere to the motives of the characters. I don't want to give any spoilers, but some of our characters' reactions to events or the actions of others didn't sit well or seem quite right. The story will take you about 10 hours to complete, give or take a few hours, which for the asking price is a relatively short story. In the horror genre, it's about the length that seems common. Aside from the story though, there isn't much reason to go back and replay the Callisto Protocol. It's very much, for me at least, a one and done game, which at the full retail price might leave some buyers wanting more. I don't want this to come across as the story is bad, it's far from it, it's just nothing special, nothing that we haven't really seen before. Luckily, Callisto does excel in some other areas outside of its story. Visually, Callisto Protocol is a beautiful game to look at, if not a little grim. The environments have been detailed with random litter, creating a lived-in world. The adding on top of this organic growth from an alien virus sweeping over the prison our protagonists have found themselves in. Some of the environments felt similar to each other, but overall you've got to explore a wide variety of areas on this moon. Snow areas, large open prisons, outside, sewers and wreckages of ships give enough environmental changes to not get bored. Jacob, NPCs and enemies all look absolutely fantastic. Following that grim aesthetic, added that Callisto Protocol has a bunch of finishing moves for Jacob and the enemies he is facing. Falling into propeller, for example, will sadly kill Jacob, but reward you with an incredibly gory and slightly awesome scene. These moves work both ways though. Throwing enemies into the environment elements never gets old and gives you an amazing little cinematic to watch. The diegetic HUD makes the whole game incredibly clean, with barely any UI, but still being able to see where your health and your ammo is in a unique way a la Dead Space. This makes every moment feel more cinematic, and it makes you feel like you're not really playing a game, and that's fantastic. It feels so much more immersive. I wish more games would use more creative UIs that aren't so in your face. Real praise should be given here, as it does make the game look incredibly clean and incredibly slick. Adding from the visuals, the general audio, music, voice acting is one of the best in modern gaming. It's really up there on how the game sounds. It's crisp, the voice acting is great, the music fits, the ambiance of the prison are all fantastic. Apart from one thing, why do I hear dial-up noise on this robot? I'm not sure if this is an Easter egg, but it really did give me a good laugh. Wait.
Unit immobilized.
Did that just make the dial-up noise? With a wide variety of weapons to choose from, an interesting gravity tool and a melee bat, it really is a case of pick your poison when it comes to how you take down your enemies. Will you try and take enemies out from afar with your pistol, blast them with your shotgun, beat them with your overzealous cattle prod, or throw them into the closest fan with your GRP tool, or the grav gun? All weapons can be upgraded and customized, selling stuff at a vendor to then purchase the upgrades you want, from better ammo capacity, reload speeds, recoil, a lot of what you would expect from a crafting or upgrade system found in other games. It's nothing too deep or too heavy, and honestly I don't actually mind that. They kept it simple but still provided at least something. I was able to buy the upgrades for the weapons I used, and frankly I just ignored all the others. Ammo didn't seem to really be an issue on my run. Playing on the normal difficulty, I only ran out of ammo once or twice, without really feeling the need to conserve it in favour of melee. This for me is a slip up when it comes to horror. Having guns to fight back with makes horror less scary. When we look at what makes the early Resident Evil games, and even 7 to an extent, more anxiety inducing and intimidating, it's the need to actually conserve your ammo, not being able to use a gun where you have to run and hide to try and take things on with just a knife. The moment I have a gun with a lot of ammo, suddenly I can blow all my problems away, which for me is just what I found in Callisto. If I had to use my ammo more sparingly, I might have been in more of a state of unease. The GRP tool, or gravity weapon as I'll now call it, was a great tool to use for getting quick kills, creating space, or just to stagger an enemy. With only a few uses before needing to recharge, it was a joy to use, being able to push enemies into the environment to kill them and throw them off ledges. As with all the weapons, it can be upgraded. This tool I found I had frequent use, not just for combat, pulling open grates, or grabbing boxes to smash for loot, a tool with a diverse range of uses. Melee combat comes with its own section in this review, as through my playthrough I'm torn on my thoughts. At first, having to dodge using A and D sequentially felt rather unique. Trying to dodge twice using just one of the buttons would result in being hit, so you had to remember which way you had previously dodged whilst awaiting the next attack. Each of the enemy types could be figured out, how many times will they attack before a gap to hit them back. Combat felt very Souls-like, punishing for being hit whilst providing opening to damage and retaliate. Removing limbs would change the sequence. After all, an enemy can't hit you as quickly when it only has one of its arms left. Quickly though, kinks and flaws found their way to the combat system. The block button never seemed to actually work for me, but through my gameplay it just became a bit dull. The combat never really advanced too much past this stage. Encounters then all felt very similar, with only a small range of enemy types. What felt like the start of a good and much more unique combat system felt like it had just been stopped midway through, with no advancement nor increase in challenge. It sadly just became repetitive. Regarding the other general gameplay, Callisto felt a bit of a mixed bag here. The game gave a variety of options when it came to combat and progression, trying to be stealthy and sneak past mobs, or the vast amount of weapons on hand for Jacob to blow apart his enemies with. However, it felt more like an illusion of choice really. You could only stealth through parts of the game you wanted to, with stealth itself being somewhat clunky, where the option to take down an enemy would sometimes not appear despite how close you were, whereas other times it would appear when you were incredibly far away. The developer said before release that they wanted you to explore the prison and find all of its secrets. However, did warn that the game was still a linear experience, and it certainly is. This is a story-focused game. Exploration is very limited, even more limited than I initially expected, if I'm honest. Especially with how beautiful or creepy the locations look, I would have loved to be able to explore just a little more, or have alternate paths that take me to some destination, rather than having the illusion of choice. For a game that wanted to be the scariest of its genre, Callisto Protocol sadly did not succeed here. Although there were one or two moments, mostly the jump scares for me were either predictable or just didn't land well. Now, I will preface this by saying I have played a lot of horror games at this point, so it may be more me being desensitized to horror in general, rather than a shortfall in the game. We also have to talk about the performance issues. Day one, on PC at least, they were really bad. In fact, they were unplayable for some. Luckily for me, I did not experience these. Add on that these issues were quickly patched and fixed, but perhaps should have been fixed before the game even released, not after. Since its release, Callisto has had more patches to improve its performance and stability, with most people now being able to at least run it. But should this mean that we let them off the hook here? Why did they release a game that had such bad issues on its day one? So what really went wrong with Callisto Protocol? Well, it feels like the game was rushed to be released, meaning day one performance issues, a very generic story, and what felt like an unfinished combat system. Callisto promised to be the scariest of its genre, didn't live up to its promises, and exploration felt shallow and very much on rails. But would I recommend buying Callisto Protocol? I would, but when it's on sale. I wouldn't purchase this game at its full price. It has a very short story. Callisto still has some beautiful visuals though, amazing audio and some fantastic voice acting, but also a promising start to a possible franchise. Callisto Protocol may have missed the mark on what they promised, but it's not bad. It's just not what was expected based on the information that was given to us prior to its release. I do believe there is potential in the world that has been started. The question will be, does the studio work to expand and flesh out this new universe, or bury it in the world of false starts? I'd love to hear your view and your thoughts on the Callisto Protocol. So let me know down in the comments below, have you played this game and what did you think of it? And if you haven't played this game, is this something you want to try, or are you going to be giving it a miss? I'd love to hear from you. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.